How does the YouTube algorithm really work? Who's making money off the video streaming platform? And why are so many people tuning in to watch an 8-year-old take toys out of boxes? Welcome to the Wired Book Club. This month we've been reading YouTubers by Chris Stokel-Walker. It's a book all about YouTube, how it's turned into the video giant that it is today, and the creators who have made a living on the platform. I'm Victoria Turk, and joining me are Matt Reynolds.
Hello.
And Matt Burgess.
Hello.
Matt, do you use YouTube?
Sorry to be part of the stereotype, but I use YouTube in a bit of a kind of middle-aged dad way. So really, I'm into a lot of guitar lesson tutorials. So I don't really have any kind of favourite YouTubers or that stuff, but I like if I'm trying to learn a song or something, I'll go on YouTube and look it up, which I feel is quite an old school. Or if I'm looking, how do I restring a guitar? How do I put on a door handle? That was a recent one. So it's kind of a bit DIY, bit personal development, which I feel is maybe not the typical YouTube use.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same, but also a little bit different. So I do a lot of running in my spare time, and I follow a few running creators that produce like documentaries around like big events and stuff like that. And they post them all to YouTube. And there tend to be like 40-minute long things, sometimes longer. So more on the scale of full programs, documentaries, essentially, rather than like subscribing to any of the really big hit YouTubers with like 40-50 million followers or anything like that.
I think I'm similar to you in that I definitely watch a lot of the how-to things. I learned how to do a messy bun for the first time thanks to Zoella. And felt sort of very young. And I also go to it for, the DIY stuff, IKEA furniture, that kind of thing. But also things like music videos, film trailers. It's very much the first place you look for that kind of video content these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I tend to go there for a lot of Mozart.
Just
other recordings of Mozart performances over the years. So that tends to be what the YouTube algorithm offers me up, a lot of mixture of Mozart and running videos.
It's funny because a lot of the way that a lot of people use the platform is following specific creators, and a lot of the book YouTubers is about those creators who gain a following of people who will subscribe to their channels. They'll get a notification every time they post a new video, and they'll really follow that personality. I've personally never really used it in that way, but I think it might be a bit of a generational thing. Certainly from reading Chris's book, it seems it's, the stereotype may be true that, it tends to be the younger generation that is really using YouTube as their main form of entertainment.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing the book gets across. So as we kind of described, YouTube is perhaps mostly a utility thing. I need to achieve a thing. I want to look at a video, watch a song or whatever. So you go there to do that specific thing. Whereas what Chris describes is this kind of world where it's celebrities that you can reach, celebrities you can interact with, celebrities who you can kind of see a little bit into their lives or understand a certain aspect that you don't always see in the very gilded world of TV or Hollywood. And that feels very different for a lot of younger people and older people. YouTube is a world of characters and people and drama and all these kind of dynamics that really I only see the very, very... I know Pewdiepie, and I know when really big stuff, Logan Paul, something happens on the platform. But as Chris's book, shows, there is a celebrity for every single segment, and there's all these kind of differing tiers of people to be interested in.
One of the things that sort of like stood out to me on the creator level, and sort of all the ones that Chris highlighted, because he goes through like a really in-depth look at different creators from different spheres, from beauty to children's videos and toys. And these channels, some of them have got millions of millions of subscribers, hundreds of millions of views, and you've never heard of somebody yet they've got 20 million subscribers on YouTube. And it's a bit of a case of, I think the book for me highlighted how big the platform has really become, and how a lot of people, particularly in maybe sort of in a generational thing, don't understand the impact that YouTube is having around the world, and the amount of people that are actually watching it and viewing it every day.
I think that's definitely a good question that Chris draws out in his reporting as well. This idea of, there's a big disconnect in knowledge about the YouTube platform, and there's quite a few scenes in there of conventions and things, and there's often parents taking their children, the children being really into these different YouTube celebrities, and the parents just kind of sitting back with a cup of coffee and having no idea what's going on. And that also perhaps extends to the way YouTube is covered. I mean, do you think it's taken seriously enough as a platform. Chris has a few scenes in the book where he kind of notes that he's pretty much the only journalist there, and no one else seems to know outside of that YouTube bubble what's happening, when really so many millions of people are involved in this. It's not a niche thing.
Yeah, I would say that increasingly it is being taken seriously. And it's interesting because I think that, say, maybe 5 years ago, people weren't sure whether YouTube was a social network where someone of no real standing, perhaps in the usual realms of celebrity, would talk to other people that could just be like them, right? The only difference was they didn't make videos, but they did. And so it had an aspect of a social network, right? People would, comment, and people would talk, and it'd be very interactive, and really everyone was a nobody, or at least to the outsider it seemed that way. And I think Chris kind of paints this world where that has really changed. You've got these multi-channel networks, so these are kind of stars that are basically signed up to agencies that will help them maintain their channels and do all this kind of, this admin and marketing things that really just looks like a kind of TV channel. And I think that at least how it's shifted in perception is that it kind of is a TV channel, and it has got its own stars. It's just that those stars are quite different, and I think that's the thing. Perhaps if we kind of don't take YouTube that seriously, it's because perhaps we lag behind and think, oh, it's some kind of homegrown stuff. It's all these kind of nobodies doing nothing, and they're not influential. Whereas really, that's not how it is. It's kind of just a TV platform where anything can happen, and that it's much less structured. So I think that we're slowly becoming aware of that, but I think it's about changing how you think about YouTube, from saying, oh, it's just another social network, to it's kind of like TV, but the celebrities are children.
And that perception, I think, has still got a long way to go. I'd say that, like, across, without going too much into like the media weeds of how YouTube is seen, I think it's still perceived by a lot of outlets as something that only the kids do, or something that isn't taken seriously, that isn't like an actual business, and with people working behind the scenes on producing and editing videos and creating shows that take into some of them take as much time as an actual production that you would see on TV. And I don't think it still has this sort of like view to it that it is just a platform where things aren't done seriously, aren't done properly. It's a little bit amateurish still. It's still got that sort of veneer to it, and obviously that exists on YouTube, but actually, like, some of the biggest channels employ tens of people that are producing videos, editing, conducting interviews, doing research, and it's a proper production. It's a full blown media organization, essentially, but just sort of decentralized.
Yeah, it's amazing how it has developed over a relatively short time, really. The book starts with sort of the first YouTube video, which is one of the YouTube creators doing a very kind of homemade video of him at the zoo, not really saying anything, kind of being very awkward in front of the camera, just being sort of like, oh, here's me with the elephants. And then you get to modern day, where quite normal, what we'd consider normal creators, are hiring people to film them. They're investing in proper lighting and camera. This is no longer sort of that homemade approach that you'd maybe originally associate with YouTube. And I think that's kind of epitomized in this battle for the top that the book gets into between Pewdiepie, who is obviously one of the top YouTubers, quite a controversial figure now, but made his name primarily by doing gaming videos. You'd watch him complete a level in a game or whatever. And now T-Series, which is an Indian channel, which, as you point out, is not just one person, one creator making their own thing. It's a proper produced channel putting out loads of stuff by lots of different people. And I think that really kind of encapsulates how YouTube has matured and changed.
And I think that's driven by YouTube as well. So increasingly, like within Chris's book, and also the reporting he's done sort of elsewhere for Wired and other publications around sort of how YouTube is changing, it seems that Google, its owners, wants it to be something where people go for quality content. It has its idea of YouTube originals, so properly produced shows, things that are exclusive to YouTube, as a destination for watching TV and being entertained. And there seems to be this sort of clash between the original sort of creators, the idea of these people that produce shows on their own and stuff like that, even though it's not always the case now, and the bigger networks, the organized platforms, and whether YouTube is sticking to its roots or you're becoming something that wants to rival your traditional sort of TV players and Netflixes and other streaming services.
Yeah, and a lot of the book was looking into the world. It's called YouTubers. It to a large part, it's about looking into the world of these creators and explaining YouTube through their eyes. We talked a little bit about the major channels, but it talks to a whole bunch of different creators. I'm interested to know what either of you surprised, the kind of different creators and the way they kind of went about their jobs. What struck me was like, oh well, you actually don't need a bunch of followers to make a decent living. Maybe you can do well at YouTube by having a really small audience of very dedicated followers. It showed that there was more than one way to be a YouTuber, essentially.
The micro influencer. Yeah, I think that's also a trend on other social media platforms like Instagram. If you don't have, millions and millions of followers, but you've got a few thousand maybe, but they're very devoted to your channel and maybe you've got quite a specific niche, then that can be a lot more valuable to brands. And that is an important part of the YouTube puzzle, is making money from it. The YouTube dream is, the Logan Pauls, the Jake Pauls living in a mansion, doing crazy stunts and bringing in millions from merch or whatever. Obviously, only a few people ever reach that level. And I don't know if that would be possible for someone starting out today. Yeah, I mean, what did you learn about life as a YouTube creator? Is it as crazy as they make out?
Honestly, it sounds quite stressful. And the book kind of talks about this. There's a passage where Chris is writing that in the early days you maybe want one video a week, and it was okay for a video to be 3 to 4 minutes long because that was kind of what the algorithm. We'll probably talk about the algorithm in a bit. Wanting to kind of push people towards. But as the platform has developed and there's been more competition and more content, that has kind of spread to really to kind of keep up your presence on the platform. You might want to put out 3 to 4 videos a week, and you might want those videos to be between 10 or 12 minutes, and that means writing scripts, it means organizing props, it means getting locations, it means editing those videos. And suddenly I thought, oh, this isn't just you sitting in front of a camera and saying, yeah, so today I did this thing, and I can't remember the creator, but there's this it talks about a young woman, I think, turning all of her life into content and generally just being completely stressed out by kind of having them follow them around. So it seems that perhaps the way the platform has changed and the way it prioritizes certain types of video mean that perhaps a certain type of creator, like you were saying, Matt, towards the more professional end of the spectrum, having the time to do those longer form things, perhaps that's the kind of way the platform is going. But I don't know, I don't think creator life is for me.
No, it seems like from the examples were in the book, a lot of the sort of original early creators from YouTube, sort of like first days, are really now starting to feel sort of the effects of the change of the platform as well, in terms of like there's a lot of talk about them being anxious and having like lots of basically stress from all the work that they have to do to keep producing things. And we've seen, I think there's a few examples, maybe not on YouTube, but of streamers that have been broadcasting games on other platforms. Once they've stopped broadcasting for a couple of days, their followers start to be like, actually, where's they gone? Where is this person? Where are their videos? I want to see them. Yeah. Are you dead? It's one of these cases where it's like the pressure seems to be one of these things that will go on like for more than 24. Well, you can't go on for more than 24 hours a day, but 24 hours a day. It's impossible to escape it in a way without people noticing. And I think that seems one of like the key takeaways for me, is just that this is like serious business. You have to be sort of like set up to go into this, and I don't think that probably too many people who want to become YouTubers, Chris mentions in the book, it's like the number one sort of ambition of lots of teenagers these days, and there's data from surveys to back that up, and it just seems like that is maybe not sort of like the effort that is needed is really transposed into sort of like the thinking of people who want to make their living and become like a YouTube celebrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a side effect as well of that kind of breaking down the boundary between the person making the content and the person viewing it, is that those viewers then are quite demanding because they feel like they have a right to the creators' lives. Like, oh, well, you usually share your secrets with me, so why are you not doing that now? They almost feel like owed that insight. So I think that's kind of interesting contrast to the traditional idea of celebrity. And the other thing causing great pressure, obviously, is the algorithm, which Google is very tight-lipped about how it works, but we can basically assume that it's generally trying to make people watch as much YouTube as possible.
Yeah, that's what YouTube wants.
Yeah. And, obviously this has caused a lot of news stories, many negative, in recent years in terms of the type of content that ends up being promoted by the algorithm to try to keep people on the platform. And it also has a knock-on effect on the people making that content who feel pressured to make certain types of videos in order to keep and grow their audience, and also who feel that they maybe don't have as much control as they originally thought. Yes, they're in charge of creating their own content, but YouTube ultimately is the platform and can have a lot of say in terms of what does well and what doesn't.
And people are reliant on YouTube's algorithm for money as well, because that's where this is like the big part of being a YouTuber. You get millions of views, you start to make in advertising revenue. If the algorithm deprioritizes your videos for whatever reason, if it doesn't like them, if it thinks there's like profanity or things that are going against YouTube's guidelines, then it will sort of delist them, derank them, and you won't get as many views, you won't make as much money. So you're pretty much like a slave to the algorithm.
Yeah, and I think it really underlines the importance of that play next function. And I think the book mentioned the point that originally you click on a YouTube video, and if you want to watch another video, you would find a different video. But now I think the figure is 70% of videos on YouTube that people watch are actually just that play next video.
Autoplay.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever one is listed, algorithmically comes top, that's the one that people end up playing next, and they end up sticking around for whatever 3, 4, 5 videos. And the problem with that is that it means you need to have something that is going to catch someone in that instant, right? Because if you have a play next video and they just go off of it, I presume that's going to say to the algorithm, well, this is not a good one to put in people's feeds. And perhaps that leads people to do extreme things. It leads people to be a bit kind of clickbaity. It leads people to put something controversial that means people are going to want to watch it, right? They have to watch it. There's a conspiracy. Hillary Clinton's a reptile or whatever. And it's really interesting to think about the degree to which those YouTube rabbit holes that you can get into and that leads you down all kinds of weird and not so wonderful places on the internet are because really you want people to not click away from that play next thing. So I almost think that play next function is such a important part of the whole YouTube ecosystem, if you like.
But do we think that if YouTube did tell everybody how this algorithm worked, do you think people would just game it more? They would try to sort of like trick their viewers into seeing more of their content?
I'm sure they would, and I'm sure that's one reason that Google doesn't explain how it's done. I think as well, because there's so little actually known about the mechanics of how it works, there is also a bit of potentially creators blaming the algorithm for things that may not necessarily be the algorithm. It's easy to kind of say like, oh, the algorithm. And I think, Chris also does cover that in the book, it's kind of become this like bogeyman of the YouTube creators world. It's the thing they sort of dread. And, because there's so much smoke and mirrors about what's actually going on, maybe they end up kind of getting a lot more stressed by it than is actually really necessary.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess if you're thinking like a parallel in the TV industry, the fashions of the TV industry are going to change. Like maybe there's a time where everyone wants mockumentaries, but actually 5 years later it's all about sitcoms or something. And in a way, the algorithm is not so different than that, apart from the fact that it can be tweaked at very short notice, and also the fact that it's probably more bespoke to individuals. But I think that you're right, that the problem that people have with it is this kind of mystery. If a TV executive is turning you down, you can say why. They can say we have no money, we don't like whatever, this person in it, or something. Whereas I think there's this great sense of mystery. But I think, like you say, Vicky, it's also a convenient enemy to have. Like the number of YouTube videos that are talking about the algorithm I think it's an endless source of fascination. But that's true of whatever industry you're in, I think.
I think the example given as well is Pewdiepie made a video complaining that YouTube doesn't want you to see my videos, and he didn't really have evidence for this. I don't think he had come to this conclusion based on the number of views or whatever. And it's like, YouTube, you're the number one YouTuber. You have more views than anyone else. YouTube is not stopping people from seeing your videos. So I think it can fuel this sort of conspiracy side to YouTube that we've seen develop in the past couple of years, and which has caused so many problems.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be the case that it's the big sticking point with YouTubers themselves. Like, we've seen that Google doesn't really give much information about the algorithm, and it's obviously got its reasons for doing so. But I think one of the big complaints is there isn't enough transparency. So people want to know when their video has been delisted or deranked and they have evidence, or it's obvious that their channel is not getting a lot of views. They want to get some sort of reasoning why. And I think as a platform that relies upon other people's content, YouTube has some responsibilities to tell people sometimes what it's doing and how it's doing it. Like, it obviously can't give the full picture, but a bit more clarity does seem like it would go a long way in sort of easing potential tensions between creators and the mythical YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, well, and another way to kind of defuse those tensions for creators, at least, is to start looking for other revenue streams. So the book talks about how a lot of creators, especially from the adpocalypse, which was basically this thing in 2017 where lots of videos got listed as having extremist content, and so lots of advertisers just pulled their advertising from videos across the website. So it meant lots of revenue was withdrawn from creators. So people started saying, well, I'll set up a Patreon. I'll get people to donate to that. Well, I'll set up events, or I'll sell merchandise, or I'll go and do live recordings or meet and greet. So it seems that there's a degree to which YouTube is only the heart of these people's career, right? Is it do you reckon it's fair to say that the smart people are thinking this is just one platform and it's a bit silly to stake your income on that on online video on its own?
Definitely. I'd say that Chris highlights in his book that how many different YouTubers are moving not away from YouTube, but actually just going down other revenue streams. They've got their Patreon fans, they've got their Pewdiepie branded socks that they sell, and all these things just sort of help to sort of like realize actually YouTube is the biggest video platform, but we're not in full control of it. We don't have that much of a say. If YouTube turns around one day and says actually we don't want to do sort of user generated videos anymore, it all wants to be highly produced, or we don't want to promote how-to videos anymore, then they will just lose their income straight away. So I think a sensible YouTuber, and one that obviously has enough sort of reach and impact, is looking at people that are other ways to earn money, and that seems completely sensible.
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe wasn't covered too much in the book actually is the sort of negative side of that monetization of YouTube. We've seen a lot of these creators have very young audiences. They know they have young audiences. Usually, lots of children follow them, and they are marketing their own merchandise or potentially, sponsored goods, branded content, that kind of thing. Not always with the most clear clarification, with the most clear clarification of, that this is an advert or this is sponsored or they are being paid to promote you this product. And that brings us to the question of where YouTube sits compared to other broadcasters or other media sites, because there's a bit of a kind of grey area there, which is slowly becoming more black and white, I think, as regulation catches up. Do you think YouTube should be regulated like regular broadcast media, like TV?
It's such a difficult question, isn't it? Because it again goes back to that whole thing of, well, is it user-generated? And if we're going to regulate it, should we be making sure things are okay in advance? Or is YouTube ultimately responsible for everything, and so we should check whether it's restricted content, or we should check whether it meets our kind of advertising rules? I think it's kind of clear at the moment that when scandals happen, they happen after content has gone online and it's really ad hoc and everyone's scrabbling to either demonetize or take the videos offline, and that's probably not good enough when your platform has 4 billion potential viewers. You don't see a TV program being knocked off air. I mean, you do sometimes, but very, very rarely, because something has gone wrong. That happens at a way earlier stage because they say that this wouldn't get by legal, or this isn't allowed. And I think that at the moment, YouTube is still in the reactive phase. Something bad happens and it adjusts and it has pressure from advertisers and it starts to change. I think as it starts to put out more longer form original content and becomes more of a hub for what you might call trustworthy in the kind of old school sense, this has been produced by people and it's been, signed off by 12 different executives or whatever, YouTube might find the defense that, oh, we're just kind of homegrown and I can't control all of this, a bit more difficult. But I think it's always been really problematic where you have a platform that does both of these things. Netflix doesn't have the same problem because it's not saying yes to everyone that tries to upload something. The reason why Amazon has a problem with people selling knives or guns and all this kind of nasty stuff is because it's not checking when someone uploads something. And the problem is, if you start to kind of be on both sides of the balance, it's like you're starting to say, I guess I do have to be responsible for some of this. So it's I don't know, it's pretty, that's not a very good answer, is it?
It's like
I'm saying
two different sets of rules for the same platform, and it all gets a bit messy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's one of these things that's going to play out a bit over the next few years. I think like Google's general defense, and it is the same defense of all the big sort of like tech companies previously, is we're not publishers, we're not responsible for this, yet at the same time they're still sort of like looking at measures to actually sort of control some of the content that's online. Obviously AI is the big thing that has been talked about, and with how that will be used to sort of moderate videos and basically pre-approve them before they get to that stage of being published. And at this stage we haven't seen YouTube or any of the platforms actually be able to really actually effectually deal with these sorts of things when they're happening in real time. So it is a case of it's still very much in that reactive space where it's responding to anything that's going on. And these are probably still like the fringe cases of videos. But when we're talking about sort of the stuff that creators are making, it still seems very much to be the content, the actual, is more nuanced on a lot of cases. It's quite difficult to understand what people are saying and doing within the circumstances that they're doing it. And it's a case of where does YouTube come down on this, and when does it come down on it, if it's going to? And there isn't one way with an answer, and it's thankfully a problem that I'm not working on, but I don't envy YouTube in having to understand how to solve this sort of question.
Yeah, and I guess there's so many questions wrapped up in that as well, because obviously it's first of all, it operates in so many different jurisdictions. Then you've got different kinds of content that you may want to regulate, whether that's, extremist content or content that breaks laws or whatever, which differ in different countries. Maybe it's a hate speech law or something like that it falls foul of. Then you've got the question of which videos is it okay to monetize, and which ads is it okay to run alongside certain types of video. There's kind of a whole bunch of issues wrapped up in there, which just, as you say, it's just a nightmare to unravel, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was going to say, it's really interesting. You have to find different levels of justification, because sometimes YouTube will say, well, we'll demonetize it, or they'll say we'll make it harder to find on the platform, but they won't take it off. And it really begs the question, well, why shouldn't this appear in my autoplay, yet it could appear if I could search for it? It's almost like, are there different realms of badness? And like you were saying, Matt, there is a lot of grey area, but it's really difficult to say, why does it fall into one category and not another? And it seems that what YouTube doesn't want to do is to take content off. It wants to say, we want to try and keep as much stuff on there as possible. But for me, I think a little bit, if it's dislikable enough that you wouldn't want someone to accidentally stumble across it in the autoplay, then why should people be able to search for it, and why should it be found? I find it's very hard to justify both of those stances.
It's a tough one. If you've got any thoughts on that, do let us know, by the way. You can reach us at podcast@wired.co.uk. We always like hearing your feedback. I guess to conclude, Chris kind of comes to this conclusion in the book that YouTube has won over TV, essentially. And he recognises, there's lots of flaws with it. It's got lots of questions to answer to. But he sort of puts it forward as this is the new thing, and it's really big, and it's the future of this medium. Do you agree with that?
Well, what struck me about the end of the book is how much YouTube was starting to feel like the old thing. There's this brilliant thing where it launches YouTube originals, and it's like Will Smith and other celebrities, and that suddenly YouTube finds itself thinking, God, we've got to do safe content, we've got to do stuff that people want to watch, and it means that you inevitably end up perhaps leading back towards the middle. Whereas what you've got is other platforms like maybe Twitch that are kind of they're live, they're perhaps more person to person. You've got TikTok, which again are very kind of personal, very kind of individual led. So I wonder if actually we're we're kind of getting to that point where inevitably YouTube has kind of drifted back towards the middle. It's had a huge impact because this whole authenticity thing, I feel, is pretty rooted in YouTube, and that's why you get, I don't know, Taylor Swift doing a live stream where she's just talking to the camera in a flat with her cat, because it's changed the nature of the type of content we want. But is it necessarily pushing the future of that type of content? Maybe not. I wonder if it's at its peak right now, but I can kind of see that the appetite for something that is more authentic might be rising up again.
Yeah, I think for me, it's sort of in the middle. Like, YouTube is obviously doing all of this original content and trying to make itself more of like a traditional platform in some ways, or traditional content platform in some ways, because it wants to attract people that haven't originally come to YouTube. I think this is a point that Chris makes as well, that this sort of new stuff that it's doing that is more produced is potentially aimed at people that are maybe older, that haven't sort of engaged with YouTube in a way. But think over the next like sort of half decade to decade, we're going to see sort of like the shift in terms of like public discourse around YouTube change a lot, as a lot of the people that have grown up with it over the last 5 or 10 years that have been a bit younger start to get into their sort of like 20s and 30s and stuff like that, and it becomes a lot more acceptable for people to be watching YouTube and treating it as like a mainstream TV channel. But I don't think that it's obviously going away anywhere anytime soon. And I think that that's something that there's a lot of people that need to sort of understand a lot more how YouTube works and its impact on the world, which goes from the media to regulators to people in between. And also the people that don't consume YouTube have to sort of think about it as being a thing. And it's not going to be one of these things that, disappears because it's doing something different or because there are more competitors to it now.
We'll see. I think it is coming to a kind of point where YouTube has to decide what it is. As you say, it's still got such a diverse range of content and such a range of different formats and different quality and everything that I don't know, does it need to choose, or does it need to define different aspects of the platform? Maybe it turns into, maybe it ends up spinning out part of that. I don't know. I could see that happening. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like we should wait for the next book from Chris,
yeah.
and maybe he'll
Chris,
have an
if
answer.
you could write us another book, that would be very helpful. We got some feedback on this book club choice. Giovanna, our book club superfan, wrote in. Thanks, Giovanna. She says, YouTube is to me a miniature of the internet as a whole. The world is on YouTube, and the platform's evolution over time has moved alongside that of the society that's been uploading and watching itself on there. Very nicely put, Giovanna. She says, I love the freedom of switching from a tutorial on cooking pak choi to a witty creator's ramblings over comments on the internet. And she continues, reflecting on the appeal of YouTube in terms of authenticity is interesting food for thought these days. The platform has played an important part, both as a consequence and as a shaping agent in the escalation of post-truth within the last decade. So I think that's referring to a lot of the controversies we've seen recently with YouTube being blamed for pushing conspiracy theories or fake news and that kind of thing. Thanks very much for writing in, Giovanna. Some really great thoughts there. If anyone else wants to share their thoughts on this podcast or anything else, just let us know, podcast@wired.co.uk. And all that's left for me to do then is to introduce our next book club read. Drum roll, please.
I don't know if this translates well to audio, but there you go.
Matt is attempting to do a drum roll on the table if no one can hear that. Our next book is Factfulness by Hans Rosling. So this book documents Rosling's philosophy of factfulness, which is a worldview based solidly in fact and not instinct. It's been recommended by Bill Gates and Barack Obama, so hopefully should be a good read. I think it'll be one to give us a lot of food for thought.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I've heard a lot about this book. I'm waiting for my negative view of the world to be overturned with this. So I'm quite excited about this one.
Yeah, so it promises the subtitle 10 Reasons We're Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think. So maybe a bit of an uplifting one. We'll see. Do get yourself a copy, join us, and we will be talking about Factfulness on September 27th. So get us any of your thoughts and feedback before then. You can also read an extract at wired.co.uk to get you started. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back next month with the next Wired Book Club. Bye.
Bye.